Hold your horses! I know maybe you were getting a little bit flustered because the title claimed that something could ever be the Birkin or the Kellys. But I'm basically using that as a little bit of a benchmark to talk about some of the bags that we're going to be talking about today. Hermes is wildly successful. Hermes don't have to do a thing. They don't need to lift a finger. Hermes can simply exist and have shops and do absolutely no marketing, no social media, nothing. And those bags are still going to be in high demand. They're still going to fly off the shelves. Well, they're never on the shelves, so you know what I mean. And other brands see this and maybe want to take a little bit of a leaf out of Hermes's book. So I've been keeping my beady little eyes open. And I've been having a look at the sort of strategies that these brands are using and which bags they're using these strategies on to sort of Birkinify, Kellyfy these bags so that maybe we start thinking of them in a similar light. Guys, if you're new here, my name is Cassie and I'm a self-diagnosed luxury addict. I put out videos on Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays, so if you like luxury fashion, then you're probably gonna love it here. So head down there, subscribe, turn on the bell, become a member of our luxury addicted family. When are we going to rehab? Never. There are more than 3 reasons, but just to simplify things, there are 3 main reasons that contribute to the success of the Birkins and the Kellys and sort of put them on that level, as it were. Those 3 reasons are exclusivity. This sort of also falls under like covetability, quantities produced, and how difficult the bag is to get. The second reason, resale values. As we know, in terms of investment values, there is no other bag, consistent bag, the odd limited edition bag, but there is no other like consistent bag that holds its value to the level of Birkins and Kellys. And then finally we have the story, the lore, the history behind it, right? You might sort of not really think about this, but that is the reason why a lot of bags are iconic, is because there's a story behind it. And I think it's a lot harder nowadays in 2024 to release a bag. Something like that, it takes time. It has a sort of cultural moment that then propels it through the rest of its life. Am I talking in riddles or are you with me? Now, not all of the bags that I'll be mentioning today have all 3 of those traits. But some have some and some don't, and this is what we're going to get into. The first brand that I kind of want to talk about is Louis Vuitton, the biggest luxury brand in the world, and they are sort of treating 2 bags on their roster as their Birkins and their Kellys. There's one from the women's section and one from the men's section. The bag from the women's section is the Capucine. This is a very structured top handle bag. When you even just look at the price of a standard leather version, it's up there. This is an expensive bag. It comes in lots of different variations. They also have this sort of artist series that gets done. You can get it in exotics. You can get it in, I saw a version recently that was hot pink and it had little flowers on the LVs, right? How do I know that they're treating this as their quote-unquote Birkin or Kelly? Well, number one, you can't buy this online. Louis Vuitton is a brand that you can buy online willy-nilly to your heart's desire. If it's in stock, you can get it. They're not trying to make it hard. You're not really jumping through hoops, right? But with the Capucine, if you go online, you can look at some, but if you click to buy, it says contact customer service or only available in store. So again, there's a little bit of difficulty involved in getting the bag. However, it's not like you have to play an Hermes level game in store and, you know, sort of dance around and maybe buy other things and blah, 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 and like, oh, just wondering if you've got any in the back there today, that kind of thing. If it's there and your card is ready, they're going to swipe it, okay? There's none of that business. I will also, however, say that the resale value on the Capucine isn't great. You can go on resale value and you can get it for a nice 50% off to what you would pay in store, right? So it doesn't have that sort of retention of value. And I think part of that reason is because it also doesn't have a history. It doesn't have a story. This is something that they just, you know, sort of whipped up one day and was like, it's a nice bag, let's make it the one, you know? So you don't kind of have that pull to it, that sort of, oh my gosh, I grew up watching my ex-favourite celebrity carry this bag, or it was carried in this film and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have that pull that some of the other really iconic bags do. However, the other bag that Louis Vuitton has, and this is a recent one, that lives in the men's section is the P9 Speedy. Okay, so this is a fully leather Speedy. It's done under Pharrell's creative directorship. And this has been consistent in his collections thus far. He's only done about 4 or 5 or something like that. But in each one, we've seen these Speedies as very much a prominent part of that in a range of different colours. I think the variety of the colours also helps. It widens the sort of appeal to a lot more people, right? It's like, oh, I'm not really a neutrals girl, but if you've got it in a pop, then we can talk, sort of thing. What this has going for it is that it has the story, okay? The Louis Vuitton Speedy is such an iconic bag. You know, this goes back to Audrey Hepburn. It was one of her favourite bags, but it was slightly too big for her. I think they only started from a size 40, so they made it in a smaller size for her in the 25. And it has become a consistent player of the house. It is, even if you're not particularly well versed in luxury fashion, you don't know the ins and outs and all of that, you know Louis Vuitton Speedy, right? This is such a huge, famous bag with history and with a story behind it. Not only have they sort of, you know, worked off of that, so it has the history behind it, and I would say it's also difficult to get. At the moment, really the only way of getting one, unless you're lucky and there's just one in store, and that does happen, okay? Again, you're not going to have to jump through hoops and they're not going to pull up your profile and go, well, have you spent enough for us to offer this to you, sort of thing. In order to sort of give you the best chance of getting one, it's really down to pre-orders. It's you see it on the runway, you like the colour, you get in touch with an SA, you say, I would like to pre-order this, they take your deposit, it comes, it gets sent to you, you pick it up, whatever it is, you've got yourself a P9 Speedy, right? But apparently, so I was speaking to an SA and she said that even with some of the pre-orders, they don't have enough quantity to fulfill all of the pre-orders. They're keeping it very sort of limited numbers and they're not widely producing it. Because of this, whatever it is, the resale value of this bag is pretty great. Now, this is a new bag, so I don't really have like historical evidence to back up the resale values or whatever, and we're only going to see if this remains consistent or it goes lower or whatever. But as of today, okay, the size 25, I looked on Vestiaire because they show you ones that have sold and how much they've been paid for, right? So size 25 is $9,300. The lowest I saw one sold for was $11,000 and the highest was $15,000. That's a range of 20% to 60% above retail. Obviously Vestiaire will take their cut, blah, 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 but those are big numbers. The size 40, which from the store is $11,100, sold for $20,800, up 87%. It's got that going for it as well. All of this is also going to depend on timing. It's going to depend on which colours people want the most and all of that. And you know, resale market and everything, it's a bit touch and go. You never quite know what you're working with. Especially out of all of the bags and all of the brands that we're going to talk about today, this is the one with the most clout behind it to be that sort of level of iconic and sought after as the Birkin. Don't come for me, but it's just a benchmark, okay? I'm not saying anything is the new Birkin or the new Kelly, okay? I'm just talking about methods and things, okay? Anyway, let's talk about Chanel. This one is tough because this is the brand that makes it most obvious that they're trying to compete with Hermes. I don't think that they're very consistent in that we've sort of heard whisperings, and this ranges across the world, even by boutique, right? Of they're putting limits on the number of classic flaps somebody can buy in one sitting or within a certain time period, right? And famously, with Birkins and Kellys, you only can buy up to 2 quota bags a year, right? But then I've also heard of people's essays, let them, and whatever. I don't think it's particularly strict, but it is also very obvious that the classic flap is the jewel in their crown. This is the one that is always included in the price increases. This is the one that they go on and on about with the craftsmanship, and yes, it has a story, it has a history, it has that going for it, right? Again, it's one of the most famous luxury bags ever. It is undoubtedly iconic. Whether or not it's that easy to get, look, I've been out of that game for a while when it comes to trying to find a classic flap. I don't think it's Hermes level of hard, but again, I think it's going to depend on the store and if they care and all of that. It seems to sort of have different essays seem to have different rules. And then if we're also talking about resale, I think recently the resale value of these bags has also been dropping simply because the price is insane, right? It's like, what, 10,000 or whatever it is. They're like, half of these are more expensive than a Birkin. Now there are so many Chanel classic flaps on the resale market that that's also driving the price down, and I think that's also because the quality has been going against them. I think if people now want to buy a Chanel classic flap, if they want a classic black one, well, you can get a vintage one that's made with 24 karat gold for much cheaper than paying 10 grand in the shop for a wonky flap. Allegedly! They're trying to be on that. I don't think that they ever will, because they just can't back it up. And they're also I was also just going to say, like, they're just not that girl. They're trying to be that girl. Everybody needs to stay in their own lane, truly, to be honest with you. Before we go into the next brands, none of them really are to a level that sort of like competes. So it's less about, do they have bags that can compete with the Birkins and the Kellys? Rather, it's more, what bags are they treating as their Birkins and the Kellys, and which ones are the exclusive ones, and which ones have the story and all of that sort of thing. So keep that in mind as we go on with the rest. The bag that everybody's been saying is rivaling the Birkin and the Kelly, the Romargot bag. I did a whole video sort of going into the ins and outs of why it is not the next Birkin. However, just to sort of like put it in context with this video, this bag sells out. It's pretty difficult to get. Certain versions are maybe a little bit easier, but if you stalk the website enough and you put on notifications and all of that business, you might be able to sort of snag yourself one. You're not playing a game to go and get it. But this bag, it is historyless. It doesn't have a story. It doesn't have that sort of narrative around it. It is definitely a timeless bag, but it is also a very sort of trendy bag in that it is a new style that has dropped. It's got all this hype around it, all of that. Does that mean that it is not classic? No. But it also doesn't have like the track record of bags that other brands have that make it iconic. Maybe from now on it starts, but there's still sort of no story. But anyway, only time will tell. The resale value is okay. I again looked on Vestiaire. You're either going to get your money back or make up to, I think, about 30% on Vestiaire is what I was sort of seeing. The bags are about sort of 5,000-ish, just under 5,000 to buy, and I'm seeing like 7-ish thousand paid for, right? The other thing that I've seen a lot of brands do recently that I found very interesting is exotics. Exotics is an interesting category because what used to happen was it would only be available in like certain stores. It was made to be very special. There would only be like a couple in and all of that, and you definitely wouldn't necessarily see a lot of them down the runway. Whereas now I'm seeing bags go down the runway and I'm like, okay, Python, Croc, Ostrich. When it comes to brands specifically like Gucci and Bottega, this is sort of, again, they're not bag-wise competing with something like Hermes. Gucci doesn't really have a bag that covers any of those sort of three main reasons. They're easy to buy online, the resale isn't crazy, but they do have history in their back pocket. I think that there's a very big focus on the Jackie specifically, and I think that they're going to try and push the Jackie in that direction of their version of one of these bags, right? We've seen a lot of them come down the runway under Sabato di Sano that are heavily embellished with these huge crystals that you know are just going to be like 16 grand a bag, in Crocodile, in Python. Gucci has a lot of bags that do have a great history, but the positioning of the brand has also been more approachable than Hermes. So how do you sort of push your bag into that category, or for us to even see it to compete in that category? And it seems like they're doing it with these sort of like special edition and exotics. The other thing is that the exotics really don't hold their value in general. If you are interested in an exotic bag and you go on the resale market, you are going to get some good deals. Bottega as well is one that the exotics can only be bought in store. Gucci, you can buy exotics online. I'm sure like you have to live in certain, because like some states you can't buy. I know in America like some states you can't buy exotics or whatever, but with Bottega you can only buy the exotics in person. But again, this is a brand that doesn't really have crazy resale value. It also doesn't have much of like an established history with its bags. It doesn't have any stories to tell. Then let's sort of cover Dior. They do exotics. They do the Lady Dior in exotics, and that is their bag that again has the most narrative and story behind it, and it's well known because of that. I mean, even the name of it and who it's linked to, all of that history is very well known. Again, I sort of struggled here because Dior in general and the Lady Dior don't have crazy resale values, right? So then you're like, okay, well what about limited editionness, right? Because it's got the history. Really, when it comes to the Lady Dior bags, any one of us can turn around and buy it online or go in store or whatever it is. Goyard. This one's a bit interesting because they don't have a lot of shops, and you can only buy Goyard from their shops, or they have like shops within shops all over the world, right? But they are not online, so they're already making it hard to shop, okay? So there's that sort of level of like, okay, how hard is it? Exclusivity, whatever. The totes, I think, are like a separate issue, but when it comes to like the Saigon, those ones I know they're a bit more funny with, right? Maybe you can't just like go in and get one. Maybe they'll be like, okay, well, we only have this color. From off the top of my head, resale market tends to do decently well actually, because there are no in-store, like it's already hard to get it. Okay, I fact checked, and this is why we fact check and we don't just go off the top of our noggins, Cassie. For the soft Goyard it's around $3,500, and for the hard it's like $5,000. The soft Saigon. The soft keeps its value more than the hard one. You're probably going to get back what you got for it. Where I think you can really get good resale value in Goyard is with the limited edition colours and things. There's hardly any about, so I haven't really managed to find any based on resale prices, but I think because there's not many about, therefore they would do well. Hopefully that makes sense. Once again though, we have the exclusivity, the resale's a bit, and there's no story. Let me know your thoughts. Are there any brands and bags that I sort of left out? Let me know what you think. I'm going to leave a link to another video over here in case you haven't already seen it. Have an amazing morning, afternoon or evening wherever you are. And in the words of my father,
if you've enjoyed it, tell your friends. If you haven't, keep your mouth shut.
See you in my next video. Mwah. Bye guys.